Good day, everyone. So, we will be tackling two topics for today. So, the first topic is all about the characteristics and classifications of other organisms like viruses, protozoa, algae, worms, insects, and rodents, which will be discussed by Neizel Ugsimar and Ronald Gemoya. And the second topic is about the beneficial activities of soil organisms, which will be discussed by Risa Mae Reponoya, James Anthony Bareno, and Genevieve Antopina.
So let us first define the viruses and the protozoa and what are their similarities. These two are both microscopic organisms, which mean they they are only visible through the use of microscope, and they can cause disease in humans and other organisms. These are the characteristic and classifications of virus. We can characterize the viruses through its structure, reproduction, metabolism, and size. So first is the structures. So viruses are composed of genetic material, which is the DNA and RNA. It is surrounded by a protein coat called a capsid. Next is the reproduction. So viruses are obligate intracellular parasites. So meaning they can only replicate inside the host cell, and they use the host cellular machinery to reproduce and create a new viral particles. So next is the virus metabolism. So virus carried out no metabolism in their own and must replicate using the host cell metabolic machineries. So in other words, viruses do not grow and divide. Instead, new viral components are synthesized as assembled within the infected host cell. Next is the virus size. So, compared to protozoa and other microorganisms, mas small ang virus, typically ranging in size from 20 to 300 nanometers. Lastly is the virus classification. Viruses are classified based on their genetic material, structure, and mode of replication. Mao ni ang DNA. And they are grouped into different families, genera, and species. So the next topic is the protozoa. Protozoa are microscopic unicellular eukaryote, means that protozoa are single-celled organisms that have relatively complex internal structures and carry out complex metabolic activities. Protozoa play important roles in environmental food web dynamics. They graze on bacteria, thus regulating bacterial populations. They partake in wastewater treatment process. They maintain the fertility in soil by releasing nutrients when they digest bacteria. So let's move on to the characteristic and classifications of protozoa. Structure. Protozoa are unicellular eukaryotic organisms, mean they have a true nucleus and other membrane organelles. They have a variety of shape and structures, including flagella, cilia, and pedipalps for movement. Next is the reproduction. Protozoa can produce both sexual and asexual. Some protozoa produce by binary fusion, where a single organism divides into two identical offspring. That means the separation of the body into two new bodies. Other may undergo sexual reproduction, which involves the fusion of gametes. Next is the metabolism. Protozoa possess their own metabolism and carry out various metabolic processes such as respiration, digestion, and excretion. They obtain energy through different mechanisms, including photosynthesis in some species or by ingesting organism matter. Protozoa are larger than viruses and can range in size from a few micrometers to several millimeters. So last is the classification. Protozoa are classified into different phyla based on their characteristic and mode of movement. Some common phyla includes Amoebozoa, Cleopora, Apicomplexia, and Eulinozoa. Next is the insect. Insects are a diverse group of invertebrate animals belonging to the class Insecta. They are characterized by having a segment body, 6 joined legs, a pair of antennae, and usually 1 or 2 pairs of wings. With over 1 million described species, insects are the most abundant and diverse group of animals on Earth. Here are some classifications and characteristics of insects. First is the body structure. There are 3 parts: the head, thorax, and abdomen. So, head contains sensory organs such as compound eye, antennae, and mouth parts. Second is the thorax, segmented region where the legs and wings are attached. Last is the abdomen, posterior region of the body containing the digestive, reproductive, and excretory organs. Next is the wings. First is the Apterygota. These are wingless insects such as silverfish and springtails. Pteriogota. These are the winged insect further classified into two, the Paleoptera and Neoptera. So, Paleoptera are insect with a non-folding wings. Best example ani kay ang dragonfly. So, maka-observe ka nga always gina naka-spread iyang wings. While the Neoptera is the insect with folding wings. Majority of the insects are inanigid sa ma-observe gini mo. So first is the solitary. These are the insect that lives in operate independently. So mostly ano nila kay hilig na sila magsulo. So best example for this is the beetles and flies. The next is the eusocial. So these insects live in the highly organized colonies with a special role, such as ants. Magabantay gid mo nga permanent sila mag-uban, di gina sila maglagyo. So next is the subsocial. These are the insects that exhibit limited in social behavior with some parental care but no distinct case of system, like certain bugs and beetles. Lastly is the habitat and feeding. So first is the terrestrial. These are the insects live on land, including the grassland, forest, and desert. Siguro kuan ang basic example ani kay mga ants, grasshopper, beetles, mga tanan na siguro except lang siguro sa mga aquatic insects. So second is the aquatic. So from the word aquatic, ma-relate ginato sa water. So these are insects that live in fresh water or marine environment, like dragonflies and water strider. Water strider ka naging kuan siya color orange nga tag-as siya tiil din maglutar siya sa tubig. Next is the herbivorous insects. So these are the insect feed on plant such as caterpillar and grasshopper. So mao gini ato mga maobserbaran kanang mga ato sa atong garden caterpillars mo na imong kaon sa mga kuan, mga leaves. Next is the carnivorous, from the word Next is the carnivores. These are insects that feed on other plants like praying mantis. Kana sila makaon kana sila kuan ng mga buhi nga insects, and the dragonflies. And lastly, the omnivorous. These are insects that consume both plants and animals. Makaon sila plants, makaon sila og animals such as beetles and ants. So these are just a few examples of the classification and characteristic of insects.
Here are classification of algae. So first, algae are classified into 6 main groups based on their pigmentation and cell wall composition, including the cyanobacteria, chlorophyta, charophyta, eoglonophyta, bacillariophyta, and dinoflaggita. So let's discuss about cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria is also known as blue-green algae, are prokaryotic organisms that use photosynthesis to produce energy. So, cyanobacteria is a microscopic organism found naturally in all types of water, like kanang combined saltwater and freshwater and marine water. So these organisms use sunlight to make their own food. Third, chlorophyta and charophyta are green algae that contain chlorophyll A and B and store food as starch. So the difference between these two groups, chlorophyta and charophyta, is the chlorophyta is a group of green algae that are living mostly in marine water, while charophyta is a group of green algae that are thriving in freshwater habitats. Fourth, eoglonophyta are unicellular organisms that contain chlorophyll A and B but also have a flagellum for movement. So aeroglophyta is a position of a single flagellum, that formation of paramylum as a storage of product, that position as a chlorophyll A and B as a absence of sexual reproduction, to lack of a cell wall that possesses a pellicle. There are many genera, but this is known of is Eoglena. Fifth, Basilarophyta is also known as diatoms, are unicellular organisms with a unique cell wall made of silica. So, Basilarophyta are most species-rich group of the autotrophic algae. Makita niyo siya sa brackish and marine waters worldwide. Also in damp terrestrial habitats. 6. Dinoflagellate are unicellular organisms that contain chlorophyll A and C and have a two flagella for movement. Dinoflagellate is a group of acylopods that can be identified using the light microscope and usually recognized by their golden brown plastid that contains visible chromosomes. So let's proceed to our next topic. It's all about worms. So what is worms? Worms are the vast group of invertebrates that belong to the phylum Annelida. So worms can also be classified based on their habitat, such as earthworms live in soil, marine worms that live in ocean, and parasitic worms that live in the body of the organism. So what do you mean phylum Annelida? So phylum Annelida is also called segmented worm, or that any member of a phylum of invertebrate animals that are characterized by the position of a body cavity. Here are some characteristics of worms. So first, worms are bilaterally symmetrical and have a cylindrical body shape. Second, they lack limbs and have a soft flexible body. Third, fourth, have a segmented body with each segment containing a pair of bristle-like structure called setae. Fourth, they have a well-developed nervous system and simple circulatory system. Fifth, worms respire through their skin and do not have lungs. 6. They reproduce sexually or asexually. But worms sexually reproduce. Some worm species are neither asexual. Others can reproduce sexual. It all depends on the type of worm we're thinking about. For example, earthworms and red wiggler worms are hermaphrodites, meaning they have male and female reproductive organs and can reproduce sexually. But earthworms did not asexually reproduction because they don't reproduce asexually. However, only half, unlikely the head half, of an earthworm split into two will generate into a full worm. Here are some classification of worms. So first, Annelida is divided into three classes, including the Polychaeta, Oligochaeta, and Herodini. So let's discuss about the Polychaeta. So Polychaeta includes marine worms that have many setae and will develop parapodia, which are used for locomotion and respiration. So Polychaetae are marine worms notable for well-defined segmentation of the body that are unique among annelids. Most Polychaetae body segments bear and pair of parapodia. Next is Oligochaeta. Oligochaeta includes earthworms and freshwater worms that have fewer setae and lack parapodia. So, Leucochaeta, well-known earthworms, and many small species of freshwater worms. They are part of phylum Annelida. The segmented worms, and if magnified, the body is visibly segmented. Oligochaeta and are also distinguished by the presence of hair like a bristle-like setae along the body. The last one is Herodini. Herodini includes leeches that have a flattened body and suckers at each end for attachment of feeding. So, Herodini is commonly known as leeches that are characterized by their proboscis and vascular system or morphology. Next topic is all about the rodents. So what is rodents? Rodents are a group of mammals that are characterized by their continuously growing incisors that they use for gnawing and biting. They belong to the order of Rodentia, which is the largest order of mammals comprising over 40% of mammal species. Overall, rodents are diverse but important group of mammals that have a wide range of physical characteristics and behaviors. They play important roles in many ecosystems and are important to study and understand. Here are some characteristics and classification of rodents. First, physical characteristics. Rodents have a wide range of physical characteristics, but they are generally small to medium-sized animals with long tails, large ears, and sharp incisors. But they have short fur, pointed snouts, and large eyes. Next is diet. Rodents are herbivores, omnivores, or carnivores, depending on the species. They eat wide range of food including seeds, nuts, fruits, insects, and small animals. Next is reproduction. Rodents reproduce quickly and have short lifespan. They are often able to breed year-round and can produce large litters of offspring. Next is classification. Rodents are classified into several families based on their physical characteristic and behavior. Some of the most common families include Moridae, Chrystidae, and Soiridae, and Castoiridae. Let's discuss the Moiridae. Moiridae is a have elongate legs and feet to allow them to move with a hopping motion, while others have a broad feet and prehensile tails to improve their climbing ability. And yet, others have neither adaptation. They are most commonly some shade of brown in the color, although many have black, gray, or white markings. Chrystidae is a family of rodents in a large and complex superfamily Moridae. It includes true hunters, bulls, lemurs, and mock rats, and New World rats and mice. Next is Soiridae. Soiridae are members of the family Soiridae, a family that includes small or medium sized of rodents. Next is Castoiridae. It's a family of rodents that contains the two living species of beavers and their fossil relatives. Fifth is habitat. Rodents are found in a wide range of habitats including forests, grasslands, deserts, and urban areas. They are adaptable animals that can thrive in many different environments. So lastly, importance. Rodents are play important roles in many ecosystems. They are prey for many predators and are important seed dispersers. However, some species can also cause significant damage to crops, homes, and other structures.
So the next topic is about the beneficial activities of soil organisms. So what are the activities of soil organisms that are beneficial to the soil properties or and to our crops? So I think you have already know what are those types of soil organisms, as the previous groups already discussed those. types of organisms, including the microorganisms and the macroorganisms. So now let's unravel what are these beneficial activities of soil organisms. So there are four beneficial activities of soil organisms. First is the decomposition of organic matter. Next is the transformation of soil nutrients, promoting soil aggregation through byproducts of their activity, and the last one is the nitrogen fixation. So now let's discuss about the decomposition of organic matter. So decomposition of organic matter is largely a biological process that occurs naturally. So organic matter breakdown is not a single chemical transformation but a complex process. So daghan jud siyang process moagi. So breakdown of organic matter involves chemical alteration of organic matter. It means chemical changes of the organic matter, physical fragmentation, and finally the release of mineral nutrients. So organic matter is a biological process because it is the soil organisms, including the microorganisms like earthworms, microarthropods, ants, beetles, etc. So that perform the chemical and physical changes. So these soil organisms perform the chemical and the physical changes. And these organisms are involved with the different stages of these processes. So next is the transformation of soil nutrients. So there are process of the transformation of soil nutrients. So first is the mineralization, immobilization, nutrient uptake, antagonism. So the first process is the mineralization. So it is the conversion of a nutrient from the organic form to the inorganic form. So the process occurs when organic materials such as soil organic matter, manure, plant residue, animal residue are decomposed by soil microorganisms. So ang bacteria and fungi are responsible for most of the mineralization of organic matter in soil. So after those soil organic matter was decomposed by the soil microorganisms, kay the final end product of mineralization is nutrients in the mineral form because the plant require nutrients to be in mineral form to take them up from the soil. So all nutrients in organic matter kay need jud na sila mo undergo og mineralization before they can be used again by living organisms. Like for example, they convert organic nitrogen into ammonium, organic phosphorus into phosphate, and organic sulfur into sulfate, so on and so forth. So this is the converting the organic form into the inorganic form. So the next process is the immobilization. So it is the reverse process of mineralization where a nutrients are converted from inorganic to organic form, making them unavailable to plants. So baliktad siya sa mineralization. If ang mineralization kay converting the organic form into inorganic form para ma-available siya sa plants, ang immobilization kay they converted the inorganic form into organic form, making them unavailable to plants. So baliktad ra sila. So the next process is the nutrient uptake antagonism. It refers to the competition between nutrients for uptake by plants. So the nutrients, often ions with the same charge, are said to be antagonistic with regards to the other. So when we say antagonistic, it is showing a dislike or opposition to one another. Like for example, phosphorus and zinc, since they have the same charge, is kanang positively charged silang duha, when the phosphorus exists, it can lead to reduced zinc uptake. And another example kay potassium and the magnesium. They have the same charge also, positively charged. So when potassium excess has been found, it has been found to reduce the magnesium uptake and vice versa.
Promoting soil aggregation through byproducts of their activity. It is the process by which soil organisms produce substances that bind soil particles together to form larger aggregates. So, by promoting soil aggregation, it means refers to the process of binding soil particles together to form a larger aggregates, in which it helps to improve soil structure, water retention, and nutrients availability. So in the soil aggregation, there will five examples. So we have improved soil structure, increase water retention, enhance nutrient availability, reduce soil compaction, and increase plant growth and yield. So what are those? So in improved soil structure, in soil aggregation, it helps to create larger soil particles that are more stable and provide better structure for plant roots to grow. So what it means? Allows plant to better access nutrients and water in the soil. So second, we have the increased water retention. So in the soil aggregation, it creates spaces between soil particles that can hold water. So in the increased water retention, it helps to runoff and erosion and allows plants to access water over a longer period. And the third, we have the enhanced nutrients availability. So in the soil aggregation, it promotes the breakdown of organic matter, which releases nutrients that plants can use for growth. So what it means? It also creates pore spaces that allow nutrients to move more freely through the soil. So in the fourth, reduce soil compaction. In the soil organism, it can help to reduce soil compaction by creating channels and spaces that allow air and water to penetrate the soil. So in the reduced soil compaction, this can improve soil erosion and reduce the risk of waterlogging. So the last, we have the increased plant growth and yield. So by promoting soil aggregation or the soil organisms can increase the plant growth and yield. So if a plants have better access to nutrients and water, it can grow more efficiently in a well-structured of soil. So in the soil aggregation, by promoting and improving the soil structure, water retention, nutrients and availability, and reducing soil compaction or the soil organism, can help to create a more sustainable and productive agricultural system. Let's move forward to the nitrogen fixation rhizobia and phosphorus solubilization of mycorrhiza. Before we proceed, so let us to identify or differentiate what is the rhizobia and mycorrhiza. Rhizobia are nitrogen-fixing bacteria that form symbiotic relationship with leguminous plants, while mycorrhiza are fungi that form symbiotic relationship with the roots of most plants and help them to absorb water and nutrients from the soil. The nitrogen fixation, so when the rhizobia invades the roots of the host plant, it will forming a nodules, nodules where they convert atmospheric nitrogen into a form that the plant can use for growth. And this symbiotic relationship is beneficial for both the plant and the rhizobia because it helps the plants to grow more efficiently while the rhizobia get access to a source of food. And the next is phosphorus solubilization or the mycorrhiza. It is the process by which phosphorus is made available to plants in a soluble form. So in the mycorrhiza, it is a symbiotic association between the fungi and plant roots that can help to solubilize phosphorus in the soil. And when the fungus invades the roots of the host plant, it will forming a hyphae that extend into the surrounding soil. So a hyphae means can access nutrients that otherwise unavailable to the plant, including phosphorus. In return, the plant provides the fungus with carbohydrates and other nutrients. And this symbiotic relationship is beneficial for both the plant and the fungus because it helps the plant to access phosphorus more efficiently, and while the fungus gets access to a source of food. In overall, in these processes of nitrogen fixation, rhizobia and the phosphorus solubilization mycorrhiza are essential for plant growth development because it helps to maintaining soil health and fertility.
Good day, everyone. My topic is all about environmental factor affecting microorganisms population. So it means the rate of growth or death of a particular microbial species is influenced by a variety of physical factors in its environment. So we have six factors affecting microorganisms. So first is a moisture content. Is a soil moisture conditions that are too dry or too wet inhibit microbial activity. Moisture soils around field capacity is best microorganisms. So the second is adequate temperature range. Activity of microorganism is limited below 5 degrees Celsius. So the adequate temperature range, the difference between the maximum and minimum temperature. So we have psychrophiles. These are the extremophilic bacteria or archaea which are cold loving, having an optimal temperature for growth at -5 to 25 degrees Celsius. And the other one is mesophiles, is an organism that lives and thrives at moderate temperatures. So this it contains 15 to 40 degrees Celsius. And the third one is thermophils, is a bacterium or other microorganisms that grows best at higher than normal temperature. So it contains 40 to 70 degrees Celsius. So the last one is hyperthermophils, is an organisms that live and thrive at high temperature, at least above 60 degrees Celsius, usually at 80 to 100 degrees Celsius. The third factor affecting microorganism is adequate carbon. So organic matter is a food source. Different organisms use different types of organic matter. For example, plants need carbon dioxide to make their own food. And the fourth one is adequate soil pH. So different microorganisms work in specific pH range. So these are bacteria prefers near neutral pH and is adversely affected by acidic conditions. And the fungi are more resistant to acidic conditions. So baliktad silang duha. So how are microbes affected by pH? So first is microbial enzymes can be denatured due to pH change. And the other one is pH may affect the solubility of other chemical which may become toxic to microbes at high concentrations or may be limiting at a very low concentrations. The next factors is proper competing organisms. So microbes are particular to the type of organisms that are around them. To be able to survive, they must be able to compete or have a favorable association with the microbes around them. The last one is aeration. This it means the needs of presence or absence of oxygen. So They have two types of aeration, which is aerobic and anaerobic. So aerobic means requires oxygen to survive, and anaerobic can survive or survives better in the absence of oxygen. So those are the factors affecting microorganisms populations.
So if naatay composition of the soil before, naapod tay composition of SOM or the soil organic matter. And this composition of the soil organic matter, it has the green tissue or also known as a plant tissue. It consists of 85 to 90% of water or the moisture and 10 to 15% dry matter. So the 10 to 15% dry matter, it consists of the carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, and small amount of sulfur, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, and magnesium. So the dry matter also include the rapidly decomposing materials or kanang dali ma-decompose, including the cellulose, starches, sugars, amino acids, and proteins, and also slowly decomposing materials or kanang dugay ma-decompose, including the fats, oils, resins, and lignin. In the dry matter, they also include the C/N ratio. So the C/N ratio of organic matter, it means the amount of carbon relative to the amount of nitrogen present. So there is no always more carbon than nitrogen in organic matter. It is usually written C/N and is a single number because it expresses how much more carbon than nitrogen there is. So for example, if the ratio is 20, this means that there are 20 grams of carbon for each gram of nitrogen in that kind of organic matter. And another example, if the ratio is 100, it means that there are 100 grams of carbon for each gram of nitrogen. So we have here the pie graph of the soil organic matter. 'Di ba ang organic matter sa soil composition, it consists of 5% only. So if i-break down ni siya, mao ni siya ang sulod sa organic matter. There are living organisms, fresh residue, decomposing organic matter, the stabilized organic matter. So in the organic matter, it contains mga living organisms. The living part of soil organic matter includes a wide variety of microorganisms such as bacteria, viruses, fungi, protozoa, and algae, and it consists of 5%. And also, the organic matter also contains mga fresh residue. It is a dead organic matter consists of recently deceased microorganism like insects, earthworms, old plant roots, crop residues, and recently added manures, and it contains 10%. And also the organic matter contains also the decomposing organic matter or the active fraction. So ang kaning active fraction, it is an active organic material. It is made up of fresh plant and animals residues that break down in a very short period of time from a few weeks to few years. And also dili mawala ang kaning stabilized organic matter or the humus. It is always present in the organic matter. So this stabilized organic matter or the humus is the stable fraction of the soil organic matter that is formed from decomposed plant and animal tissue. It is the final product of decomposition, and the stabilized organic matter and decomposing organic matter has the same percentage, which is 33 to 50%. So the last topic is about the function of organic matter in the soil, and there are 6 functions of organic matter in the soil. And first is the source of essential elements. Of course, the organic matter is a source of essential elements because these essential elements help our plants or crops further growth and development. So next is the substrate of most soil organism. So it has a source of carbon and energy of most microorganisms or the chemi-heterotrophs. These chemi-heterotrophs are the microbes that use organic chemical substances as sources of energy and organic compounds as the main source of carbon. So examples of these chemi-heterotrophs are the herbivores, carnivores, scavengers. Ang kaning scavengers, mao ni siya ang animals that consume from dead organisms. And last example of the chemiheterotrophs are the decomposers. Next, the organic matter in the soil provides the distinct color of soils that improve the soil's ability to absorb the sun's heat energy. Organic matter also improve the soil physical properties, like a good cementing agent contributes to structure development via aggregate formation and stabilization, and also improvements in structure contributes to improvement in soil and water movement through the soil body. The organic matter in the soil also contributes to the CEC or the cation exchange capacity. Lastly, the organic matter in the soil has a good buffer against pH change. It exposed functional group may protonate or deprotonate. So when we say protonate, it is the addition of proton. When we say deprotonate, it is a removal of proton from any atom, ion, or molecule. In response to a change, the chemistry of the soil solution and thus may serve as a buffer against drastic change in soil pH. So, the organic matter acts as a pH buffer. It helps to stabilize soil pH levels. It has the capacity to resist drastic changes in soil pH by releasing or absorbing hydrogen ions. And that's all for discussion. Thank you so much for listening.